Lessons Learned, the Seriously Loco show, where we recap the last match and see what lessons we can take with us going forward into the next match. Today, we're talking about what lessons we can learn from the inaugural game. The first takeaway from this match was that the occasion was amazing. It was a spectacle from start to finish, and a huge part of that was obviously Eighth Notch and just all the folks who came out to the pre-party at Whiskey Blonde and just started the party. It was just an absolute blast. Everyone was just enjoying themselves. The march to the match, everybody was kind of getting involved. People just waiting in line for the doors to open started joining in the chants, and so with that whole march, the samba drums, like everything about it was just amazing. And so that spectacle and that fire and that energy and excitement that everybody had, the lesson learned is that has to happen. It has to be like that every single match. So there's, just 16 more home games in the whole season. All 16 of them should be huge spectacles, like amazing, just as they were in this first match. So the lesson learned here is don't let the result take away from the rest of the season, because this team is going to be one to watch, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun, and it's going to be just great to be in that stadium every single match. The second lesson that we need to learn, and this is something that we're trying to tackle, right? The goal kick chant. I know this is like a little serious because I really don't want this to define the team and define the supporters of the team, and I especially don't want it to define the city. Eighth Notch is co-opting the normal goalkeeper shout that we hear very often. They're co-opting that into something positive. So I want everybody, if you're watching this, everybody who sits in other sections, spread the word. The opposing goal kick chants is El Chuco, for Chuco Town, for El Paso, right? So let's make this a positive thing. Let's make it ours. Let's own it and make it something positive rather than something negative. I don't want that chant to be associated with our city, right? We love El Paso. We love the club. There's no reason for there to be negativity and hate surrounding the goal kick chants. Changing the culture around that particular moment in a game is something that's really important, and I think that we need to change it from something negative into something positive. So please join with us in that and just make it about positivity rather than negativity. Okay, so moving on to the result. The result was disappointing. It's a 3-1 loss to OKC Energy. So I'm going to describe a team. I'm going to throw out a few stats, and I'm going to have you guess what team that is that I'm describing. Playing at home, enjoying about 70% of the possession, having about 10 more attempts than their opponents, and losing 3-1. Can you guess? If you said Locomotive, you're correct. But the team I'm talking about is PSG. The French champions and World Super Club did that against Manchester United. Same type of possession, same type of attempts, and they lost 3-1. It is possible. It happens to some of the greatest teams on earth. This type of result for Locomotive, while disappointing, is in no way the end of the world because they controlled the game. Locomotive controlled the game. There are tons of positives from that. And so we'll try to dig in to what exactly happened to allow the 3-1 loss, despite the fact that Locomotive controlled and played better, an objectively better game than OKC. That doesn't always mean you win. That always has the potential of happening in a game like this. The first lesson from the actual match is OKC have lethal finishers. Deshaun Brown and Cordell Cato, both people that we mentioned in 3 points, the pre-match show. Deshaun Brown ends the game with 2 goals. Cordell Cato ends scoring the third. Those were essentially the three chances that those two had between them the entire game. So I think Deshaun Brown may have had one more opportunity in the whole game. That's kind of amazing. Like, for a team as good as OKC to limit their main goal scorers to three chances the entire match and to have them score all three of them, that's just, at some point, that you have to tip your cap to Deshaun Brown and Cordell Cato. All three finishes were great, honestly. And so the lesson to partially take away from this is give credit where credit's due. And yes, there are some defensive mistakes, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But OKC's strikers and frontline players are deadly. The next lesson to take away is defensively, if we're going to control the match like we did, we have to marshal those chances a little bit better, and our decision making has to be a little bit better. We knew the way that we set up, we would have the majority of the ball. We knew OKC would sit back. We knew they would try to play on the counter. So in those few moments that you do have to defend, it has to be sharper. We got caught out. The first goal, I think it's a combination of things. Maybe the occasion got to the guys a little bit because it was crazy. We talked about it before, but the atmosphere and everything was a different level. And it is an extremely tough goal to concede and to bounce back from, which the team did bounce back from that early goal for OKC. One misjudged header makes all the difference, and in this case it was Meshach Jerome. He gets caught under the ball a little bit, and Deshaun Brown's in behind, takes one touch, brings it down, and finishes instinctively. At that point, with the missed header, that really was all it took, because the rest of our defensive line was caught higher up the field, couldn't track back in time. Deshaun Brown was in, and when he's in, he's probably going to put it away, as we talked about. The second goal, it's a decision to come out and claim it from Ketterer. It kind of allows Brown to go around him, and he then has the goal to aim at as he's falling down. It's still a very good finish, and please don't take away anything from that finish from Brown. It's really a top class finish and instinctive once again. He's absolutely lethal. Ketterer can do better in the situation, because I think in that case, having watched it back, Brown is too wide for him to really create a good shooting angle. If Ketterer stays at his near post, he probably saves whatever shot comes in from Brown. So the decision to go out, in hindsight, yes, it's a little rash, I think, but it's said with hindsight. It's very different when you're standing on your line and now all of a sudden Deshaun Brown is in on goal. Probably one of the worst situations you could find yourself in the Western Conference in the USL. There's very few people that you want to be one-on-one with. And so closing that angle down, the decision is fine. It's a 50-50 basically. But if he makes the decision, he has to win the ball. And in this case, he didn't. And so it ends in a goal for OKC. It is what it is. I don't mind an aggressive keeper. Ketterer is more active. He gets off his line. I think Mark Lowry wants that out of his keeper. And he wants him to be involved in the buildup. He wants him to restart play quickly. He wants him to be aggressive. I don't mind it, and I don't want to squash that in a keeper. I don't think we want that at all, because in those situations where we're being hit on the counter, you want your defense to be proactive about it and not reactive. Then things happen like just happened, and you get caught out by not being proactive and react. You're now reacting to a situation rather than cutting it out ahead of time. So I don't mind having an aggressive keeper. I think it's important, and I think his decision making will get better as the season goes on. And I think overall he actually has a pretty good game, despite the fact that he concedes 3. Okay, enough talk about OKC's goals. Now it's time to talk about Locomotive. The big takeaway from me, having watched the game back, is that Sebastian Contreras is going to be absolutely vital to how we play the whole season. And I don't think that's groundbreaking to anyone around the team, But for us now, having just seen the first real full match, my view of Sebastian Contreras was off YouTube compilations, set to terrible Euro trash trance music. That's not the best way to judge a player. But having watched him now for 90 minutes, Seb can be absolutely brilliant. And he was for the first goal in Locomotive history. He rips the entire defense to shreds. He takes Rafa Garcia out of the game, gets past him, puts a great cross in, and leaves it there for Derek Gebhard to finish. Derek getting the first goal in Locomotive history. And it was after, conceding that early goal. It would have been very easy for Locomotive to kind of capitulate, honestly. You give up a goal that fast, it's like, okay, what is going on? But they knew that they had 90 minutes to right the ship. In order to be successful, you always want your best players to have a lot of touches of the ball, because it means that something is likely to happen. To me, Sebastian Contreras is probably that player that we want touching the ball more than anybody, because that means that he has options in front of him, and he has the ability to dribble, he has the ability to get past people, and he has the ability to pick out those on either side of the pitch. He can pick out, ideally he's looking up from that number 10 position, which is more or less where he played, although he had a lot of license to roam around, which is also good. It doesn't let a team, just place a defensive midfielder on him and say, okay, mark him out of the game, completely nullify him. It gives him the ability to drift around, gives him the ability to find the space where it is, and that's exactly what happened on the goal. He finds space on the left, it's off a throw-in, and he's able to, the skill on the goal is fantastic. He just absolutely takes the defender out and finds Gebhard. But having that ability to roam is good, and getting Seb more touches is going to be vital, because there were periods of the game where it felt like he was a little bit out of it or a little bit deep in order to find the ball. And so I think it's really important going forward that we get Seb as involved as possible, and I'm sure that Mark is doing something to that effect, basically trying to get the playmakers more involved. The next takeaway is about the star man, Omar Salgado. So not a lot went right for the big forward in this match. He was absolutely manhandled throughout most of the game, and I think it's going to be a focus. I talked about this a little bit. I think it's going to be a focus for referees in USL. The threshold for what's allowed against Omar has to be decided, essentially. It has to start being consistent, because every single time that the ball came near Omar, OKC's defenders put their arms around him. Every time they wrapped him up. It didn't matter if it was in the box, it didn't matter if it was outside, and a couple of times it was given, but it was mainly given in situations where it's kind of harmless to give the foul, right? The referee takes pressure off himself by giving fouls in areas where it's not really dangerous. It doesn't really give a scoring chance to either side. And to me, it requires a little bit of bravery from a referee to give fouls in dangerous areas or even penalties for hands on a striker. It's starting to be reeled in the world game. There has to be a little bit more attention paid. And I'm not just saying this obviously because, it will help Omar get more goals if the defenders aren't allowed to manhandle him as much, but there just has to be a consistent application of the rules of the game. If defenders are able to play basically against the rules, against our best player, it's going to be tough for him to score. So in the future, I just think there really does need to be attention paid to how Omar is being treated, because he's always going to be the target. He's always going to be who we're trying to get the ball to in the attacking third. Teams are going to set up to try to nullify him. They're going to put 2-3 guys on him, which is, it's exactly what you see for our goal. Contreras gets in behind. He's one-on-one. There are 3 OKC defenders standing on the edge of the 6-yard box where Omar's dropped to the penalty spot for a potential cutback. That leaves the goalie in complete no man's land. So when the cross comes in, he thinks that his defender's going to deal with it, but his defender's facing Omar. It goes right past him, and then Gebhard's at the far post to tap in because he's not being marked. There was no attention being paid to anyone aside from Omar in that box. So teams are going to set up, and that brings us to the next lesson learned. And we did see this. The chances that the other players have to be taken. Just before we get the goal, Omar has a chance from a header, from a delivery from James Kiffey. It's a tough header. He needs to get a glance on it. He gets power on it. It's tough. It's a tough one to direct. If he glances it, it's probably a goal at the distance that he's at and the pace the cross came in with. But the chances the rest of the game all came from players other than him. The biggest chance is just after halftime. It's Derek at the far post again, but this time with a header. And he should score. Genuinely, it's a free header at the far post. He has to direct it back where it came from. He tries to put it down and inside the far post, which decision making wise, fine, no worries. I think if he heads it back where it comes from, he's got a lot of goal to aim at, and that's just one of those things that in the moment you have to make a split decision. He went down, which is always good. It's tougher for a goalie to get to. But it's a sitter, and he really has a chance to give. At that point, it would have given us a 2-1 lead, and it is a moment that really changes the game because they go on and score shortly thereafter. The next chance is actually, and I'll just say this, I said it on Twitter yesterday, but there is a better universe where the curling effort from Brian Rebellon from the edge of the area goes in off the post, and the 8-notch goes absolutely mad. Everyone's just losing their mind because it would have been a screamer and it just hits the outside of the post rather than the inside. It's a matter of a few inches that makes all the difference in that case. The last chance is James Fox. Fox was not the fox in the box at this case. He was technically in the box, but he wasn't a fox in the box, because the fox in the box is like that poacher, who gets a goal. It's another sitter. And at that point, it would have equalized. It's a great chance, and it's just he snatches at it a little bit, and it doesn't come off for us. That moment is also big, because if we equalize with 10 minutes to go, then we're pushing for the winner rather than them being able to kind of hit us on the break for the dagger, which it ended up being. So we have to do, the next lesson, we have to do a little bit better in our finishing. And that's where they were clinical, we were not. And that's how it goes sometimes. That you see that from some of the best teams on earth. Some of the best players on earth have their off days. Even the best teams in the world are going to get 3, maybe 4 big chances in a game. We created 3 big chances, scored one of them, and missed the other 2. You could argue that the Omar chance is also maybe a fourth big chance. But when you have those opportunities, you have to put them away. And so if we have to take our lessons going forward, it's keep the crowd absolutely as it was. That environment needs to happen every single match. The defense needs to be definitely sharper in those tough moments. We have to finish more clinically, and we have to get our best players involved as much as possible. Seb Contreras will be, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Seb Contreras will be a star in the USL, and he'll be a star for Locomotive as well. Derek Gebhard grabs the first goal in Locomotive history. His goal-scoring form I talked about in the podcast before. I said one of the keys to our season would be the goal-scoring form of everybody other than Omar, but in particular Gebhard, because he's got a record of goal scoring that goes back to his days in NASL with Armada and playing with Armada even in NPSL as well. The guy is a goal scorer. He's got that knack for getting in the right positions. We saw it in this game. 2 times he finds himself, in great positions to score. He puts the one away. The next match is against Real Monarchs. Obviously, Real Salt Lake's USL affiliate. But I'm going to go ahead and save all of my stuff for Real Monarchs for the next 3 Points episode, which will be out later this week. So if you guys have enjoyed the lessons learned, please let us know. Let us know what you think. What was your big takeaway from the match? Drop it in the comments below. Let's start a discussion about our team. We've played a match. We exist. We're real. The thing is happening. So let's talk about it. Aside from that, if you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe so you can get all our videos and get them in your feed and in your recommendations and all that stuff. Keep an eye out. We'll have our next full podcast this week. It'll be published on Wednesday, and that'll have all of the rundown, the in-depth analysis of all the stuff from this past match, and we'll look ahead to Real Monarchs on Saturday. If you're enjoying the series, please leave a like as well. If you're looking for a place to watch the match, the official watch parties are going to be at Brass Monkey, and I know Eighth Notch will be out there representing. We will have a live watch along on YouTube where I'll be providing commentary for the games. I'll be watching on ESPN Plus. So if you're not shelling out for the ESPN Plus subscription, you can use me as radio, or you can use me as alternate commentary to what will certainly be a Homer RSL Salt Lake / Monarchs whatever type. Yeah. Subscribe if you want to see that as well. We'll have the watch along, and it'll be extremely biased, obviously, towards Locomotive because we'll be watching and I'll be providing that alternate commentary. Keep an eye out for all of our future stuff. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing this stuff to you guys, and I cannot wait for the next match at the SWAP, March 23rd against RGV. Keep an eye out for all that stuff, and until next time, stay loco.